Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take your sources, your notes, articles, research, and really distill what matters. And today we're tackling something I think is really quite transformative.
Yeah.
This idea of moving. Well, moving from just watching your faith, like a spectator.
Right, sitting in the sands.
Exactly. To actually becoming an active storyteller within it.
That's a powerful shift.
It really is, because, for a lot of us, faith can sometimes feel like it's a performance, right? Something for the pastors, the professional evangelists, maybe.
Reserved for the experts.
Yeah, and we just observe. But what we've got here in these sources points to something, well, radical.
Which is?
That every single believer actually holds the key to pretty incredible spiritual influence, and it's through their personal story.
Okay.
So our mission today really is to unpack why. Why is the shift not just like a nice idea, but maybe even a strategic necessity now?
And the how as well, presumably.
Yeah. And the how. Definitely. How you can embrace your own unique story as a tool. So, let's dig in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so starting off, one thing that really jumped out from the material is this concept of an invisible line.
Ah, yes. The invisible line in the sanctuary.
That's the one. It's this sort of quiet, almost subconscious belief, isn't it? That the real work of ministry belongs to just a few people, pastors, missionaries, who did the sources call them, the spiritually elite.
Yeah, that phrase pops up.
Yeah.
And what's really striking is the impact of that belief. It's not just like a harmless misconception. The sources argue it's actually spiritually stunting the church.
Yeah.
It effectively sidelines this huge, untapped resource.
Which is everyone else's story.
Precisely. Every believer's personal experience. When we're kind of trained to just watch, that potential for real grassroots spiritual influence just slips away.
And the cost is?
Stagnation. The cost is stagnation, according to this research.
Wow. Okay. And here's where it gets really interesting for me, thinking about, today.
We're just flooded, aren't we?
Yeah.
With polished campaigns, slick marketing, even in faith contexts.
Oh, absolutely. Information overload.
Right. And that old model, the sort of one-way proclamation from a platform, it just doesn't seem to land the same way anymore.
It struggles to cut through.
Yeah. And the sources really emphasize that relational storytelling.
Yeah.
Well, it does cut through. It cuts through the noise.
Because it invites people in.
Yeah.
Into a narrative they can relate to, see themselves in, perhaps.
Exactly. So it's not just a nice thought. It's framed here as a strategic necessity, particularly now. People are just starving for authentic connection.
That authenticity piece is key. And, connecting this to the bigger picture, what the material really highlights is that this push towards storytelling isn't some new fad.
Oh.
No, it's framed as a reclamation, getting back to the original DNA of the faith.
The original DNA. How so?
Well, the argument is that the very design of how God communicates is narrative. It's story-based.
I mean, think about it. God himself is presented as the first storyteller. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created. It doesn't start with a list of doctrines.
No, it starts a story.
He initiates a narrative. And you can read the whole Bible, really, as this one grand narrative, right? Creation, fall, redemption.
Restoration.
Right. And then Jesus comes along, John 1:14, the Word made flesh. He enters into that story, not just as a teacher dishing out facts, but as its
embodied fulfillment.
Exactly, embodied fulfillment. And look how he taught, often using parables, stories, showing that truth. When it's told relationally, personally, it becomes transformational.
Okay, I see that connection. And this design, this story-centric approach, it actually extends to our role too, doesn't it?
Very much so. The sources really hammer home the role of testimony in Scripture.
Right, like the Hebrew word eat.
Yes, eat testimony.
Yeah.
It wasn't just abstract ideas or principles. It was about people's actual lived experiences of God showing up, his faithfulness.
That makes it so much more grounded.
It does. And think about Revelation 12:11, the saints overcoming by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony.
Right, both together.
It reveals this kind of divine paradox.
Right.
Our small personal stories, when they're connected to Christ's big story, his work, they actually become weapons, instruments of spiritual victory.
That's quite a thought. Our stories as weapons.
Yeah. So then the question becomes, well, who gets to wield these weapons? Who's called to this storytelling?
And the answer seems pretty clear from the sources.
It's forceful. The discipleship mandate was never elitist. That Great Commission, Matthew 28, go therefore and make disciples.
Who is he talking to?
Exactly. Not theological PhDs. It was a group of, let's be honest, ordinary men, Fishermen, a tax collector, people who doubted,
Regular people.
regular people. And the call was to mentoring in life, which just assumes relationship. It assumes sharing stories.
It has to.
And you combine that with the idea of the priesthood of all believers from 1 Peter.
Everyone has direct access. Everyone is called.
Right. Every believer is meant to be both disciple and discipler. We're not just supposed to consume truth, but to actually live it out loud, visibly.
Okay, so this makes the theological case. But what about practically? For someone listening right now thinking, okay, I get it, but what do I do?
Good question. And the material actually breaks it down quite simply. It talks about just 3 moves to start sharing your story.
3 moves. Okay.
It's about empowering yourself to naturally disciple others just in your everyday life.
All right, what's the first move?
First, you need to identify your story's arc. Everyone have one. Every believer has a before and after, even if it doesn't feel super dramatic.
Doesn't have to be a movie plot.
Exactly.
Right.
So move 1 is the before. Ask yourself, who were you before Christ kind of disrupted your narrative?
What shaped you? Where did you look for meaning?
Yeah, what were the struggles, the emptiness maybe? And the key here is honesty, not polish. The power is in the realness.
Okay, what's move 2?
Move 2 is the encounter. How did Jesus interrupt your story? What was the turning point?
Could be anything, right? A crisis, a conversation.
Absolutely. A friend's testimony, maybe just a slow realization reading scripture.
Yeah.
The point isn't like grand theater. It's about how God became personal to you.
Okay. Before, encounter, move 3.
Move 3 is the after, but it's framed carefully. Now I'm learning to live with.
Learning, not arrived.
Precisely. It's the ongoing reality of walking with Jesus. It's definitely not happily ever after. It's about direction.
So you share the ongoing stuff.
Yes. Share where you're still learning to trust.
Yeah.
How grace actually helps you day to day with parenting, forgiving, leading, even suffering. And this is critical. Your ongoing struggle doesn't weaken your testimony. It deepens it.
That's huge, because I think that's where people get stuck. They think they need to have it all figured out.
The opposite is true, often.
Okay, so you identify the arc. Before, encounter, after learning, then what?
Then the sources really stress embedding the story in relationships.
So it's not about shouting it from a rooftop necessarily.
Not primarily, no. Evangelism often gets painted as confrontation, right? But this research suggests most spiritual transformation occurs in the context of relationship.
Makes sense, like Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch you mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
Totally.
Or just Jesus with his disciples walking, talking, eating together. It's about living your faith visibly, letting the story emerge naturally as you walk alongside people.
Okay. And that leads to the next point, which is about platforms.
Yeah, using the platforms you already have in this age of content saturation.
So much noise.
Right. The argument is we don't need more megaphones. We need more living stories.
And those platforms aren't just literal stages.
Not at all. They're coffee shops, classrooms, your work Slack channel even, sidewalks, dinner tables.
Digital spaces too, presumably.
Absolutely. Your influence isn't really tied to how many followers you have, but to faithfulness in the spaces you already occupy.
So even my social media feed can be a place for this.
Definitely. It can tell the truth about grace, about weakness made strong, about the real hope you carry, not some airbrushed version.
Okay, this all sounds, well, really empowering, but there's always a but.
There usually is.
Many of us, myself included sometimes, feel this internal resistance, right? The sources call them common pitfalls that silence believers.
Yes, the inner critic.
Yeah, thoughts like, I'm not qualified, or my story is just too messy, or what if I say the wrong thing? Or the big one, I'm afraid of being judged or rejected.
Those are real barriers. Let's unpack them a bit. First, that myth of the professional Christian.
The idea that you need a degree or a title.
Right. Is presented here as a lie. God's kingdom, the sources say, advances through availability, not ability.
Availability, not ability. I like that.
Think about that story of the Gadarene demoniac in Mark 5. This guy had zero training, no fancy title. All he had was a testimony.
A pretty dramatic one.
True. But what did Jesus tell him? Not, go get ordained. He said, go home. Tell them how much the Lord has done for you. His past, his perceived disqualification, actually becomes his credential.
Wow. Okay. What about the messy story fear? I'm still struggling.
Yeah, the perfection trap. That feeling is almost anti-gospel, isn't it? God specializes in using messes.
We see that all through Scripture.
Absolutely. Moses stuttered.
Yeah.
David, major moral failures. Peter denied Christ publicly. The The insight here is powerful. Your pain, when surrendered to Christ, becomes a pulpit.
Your pain becomes a pulpit.
And think about it. Redemption is more believable when it's visible, when people see the struggle and the grace, not just a polished facade.
So the messiness actually adds credibility.
It can, absolutely. And fear. Paul himself, the Apostle Paul said, I came to you in weakness with great fear and trembling.
Even Paul felt fear.
Right, so fear isn't necessarily a sign you're doing it wrong. Sometimes it's evidence that we are attempting something beyond ourselves. Stepping out in faith is scary.
That reframes fear quite a bit. It's not a stop sign.
Not necessarily. Ultimately, what this whole deep dive seems to point towards is that faithfulness is measured not by results, but by obedience.
Just telling the story.
Just letting your story speak. Not because your story is perfect, but because he is.
That takes the pressure off.
It should. And imagine, just think about the potential impact if every believer actually got this, embraced this role.
What would that look like?
Well, the sources suggest that if every believer reclaimed their role as a storyteller, discipleship wouldn't be some formal program. It would flourish organically.
Just happening in relationships.
Exactly. Churches would naturally decentralize spiritual authority, recognizing the power isn't just at the front.
And evangelism.
It would feel personal again. The gospel wouldn't seem like this distant, abstract thing. It would feel near incarnational, like it's happening here and now, through us.
Through our lives, our stories.
Yes. So really, this is an invitation for you listening right now to step into a rightful role in the divine narrative.
Not just as someone who receives grace,
but as a living witness to its power. Your life, as the material puts it so well, isn't a side note to the gospel.
No.
No, it is a vessel through which the gospel flows. Your story, yes, your specific, unique life is a chapter someone needs to read.
A living epistle, like a letter people can read.
That's the phrase, a living epistle.
Wow. This has been quite a deep dive. It really lands with this core truth, doesn't it? You were never meant to just sit on the sidelines.
Never just a passive listener.
You were called from the beginning to be a storyteller, a participant in this grand, ongoing, divine drama. So maybe the question to leave with is, what story are you telling? Not just with carefully chosen words, but, with your actual life.
The day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. What chapter of your faith journey, maybe one you've been a bit hesitant about, needs to be shared? Who in your life might really need to hear your honest story?
Someone is waiting.
Someone is waiting. And maybe they're not waiting for a preacher or an expert. Maybe they're just waiting for you.